The political landscape between Mexico and the United States took a dramatic turn when Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum revealed that U.S. President Donald Trump had proposed sending American troops into Mexico to help combat drug trafficking. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. Speaking before an audience of supporters in eastern Mexico, Sheinbaum's tone was firm, almost defiant, as she recounted the tense conversation that had recently taken place between the two leaders. Her words carried both pride and warning, a clear declaration of Mexico's sovereignty in the face of Washington's growing pressure. According to Sheinbaum, the proposal came directly from Trump during a phone call last month, which was later detailed in a Wall Street Journal article that described the exchange as strained and confrontational. Trump, according to the report, pressed her to allow greater U.S. military involvement in the country's fight against powerful drug cartels. The offer was presented as a partnership, a way to help Mexico, but beneath the diplomatic phrasing lay an unmistakable undertone of American assertiveness. He said, "How can we help you fight drug trafficking? I propose that the United States military come in and help you," Sheinbaum recalled to the crowd, pausing before delivering her pointed reply. "And you know what I said to him? No, President Trump." Her rejection was met with loud applause from her supporters, a moment of national pride that resonated deeply across a country long sensitive to any hint of foreign intervention, especially from its northern neighbor. In Washington, the White House moved swiftly to respond to Sheinbaum's public remarks. James Hewitt, spokesman for the National Security Council, issued a statement reaffirming Trump's commitment to maintaining what he called the most secure southwest border in history. The statement praised the cooperation between the two governments but also carried a subtle rebuke, emphasizing that dangerous criminal networks continued to threaten both nations. "Dangerous foreign terrorist organizations continued to threaten our shared security," the statement read. "The drugs and crime they spread threaten American communities across the country. The president has been crystal clear that Mexico must do more to combat these gangs and cartels, and the United States stands ready to assist and expand the already close cooperation between our two countries." Beneath the official tone of cooperation, however, the tension was evident. The Trump administration had already begun taking more aggressive measures along the southern border, deploying troops and intensifying surveillance operations. In January, Trump had ordered the Pentagon to expand the Army's role in curbing illegal migration and narcotics smuggling, a move that significantly increased the U.S. military footprint near Mexico. The U.S. Northern Command, acting under these directives, had surged personnel and equipment to the border, launched new aerial surveillance missions to track fentanyl shipments, and sought expanded authority for U.S. special forces to operate in coordination with Mexican units during anti-cartel missions. To Washington, these steps were necessary to defend American communities from the deadly spread of fentanyl and the violence fueled by transnational crime. To Mexico, however, they raised alarm bells about the erosion of national sovereignty. Sheinbaum's refusal to permit direct U.S. military involvement was not just a political stance, it was a statement of independence, a reminder that Mexico would confront its internal challenges on its own terms, without foreign boots on its soil. Trump's decision earlier in the year to designate many Mexican drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations had already strained relations. The move was intended to give U.S. law enforcement broader powers to target cartel members, restrict their financial movements, and justify deeper intervention. While the decision was applauded by some American officials, it was met with unease in Mexico, where leaders feared it could open the door to unilateral U.S. military action under the guise of counterterrorism. President Sheinbaum, who came into office promising a new era of national dignity and pragmatic cooperation with Washington, now faced one of her most difficult tests. For months, she had managed to maintain a delicate balance, cooperating with the U.S. on immigration enforcement and trade negotiations while asserting Mexico's right to self-governance. But Trump's latest proposal, however well-intentioned it may have been presented, was a line she would not allow to be crossed. Her message to both her people and to the international community was clear: Mexico would not become an extension of U.S. military power. "We are a sovereign nation," she told her supporters, her voice rising with conviction. "We will fight our battles with our own strength, our own laws, and our own people." The crowd erupted in cheers, waving flags and chanting her name, a display of national unity that underscored how deeply the issue of sovereignty runs in Mexican identity. In Washington, Trump's team sought to downplay the tension, framing the disagreement as a difference in tactics rather than a breakdown in cooperation. But insiders familiar with the talks suggested that the call between Trump and Sheinbaum had left relations more strained than either side was willing to admit publicly. Trump, who has long made border security and the fight against drug cartels a central theme of his political message, was said to be frustrated by what he saw as Mexico's reluctance to act decisively against criminal organizations. Behind the scenes, U.S. defense and intelligence officials had been exploring ways to increase operational cooperation with Mexico's security forces, including shared intelligence, joint surveillance operations, and training programs. Yet for Sheinbaum, the idea of American troops crossing the border, even under cooperative terms, carried too much historical and political baggage. The memory of past U.S. interventions in Latin America, and in Mexico in particular, still lingers as a cautionary tale. The Wall Street Journal's report added another layer to the growing debate about U.S.-Mexico relations. It portrayed the phone call as one of the most contentious exchanges between the two leaders since Sheinbaum took office, suggesting that Trump's aggressive diplomatic style clashed with her cautious but firm approach. Some analysts argued that the incident exposed the limits of the current security partnership, while others warned that a public confrontation could jeopardize hard-won progress on trade and immigration agreements. For many Mexicans, Sheinbaum's refusal resonated as a patriotic act. In the streets and across social media, citizens praised her for standing up to Washington's pressure and defending Mexico's autonomy. Her statement also revived memories of past presidents who had resisted U.S. influence, placing her in a long tradition of leaders asserting Mexico's right to chart its own course. However, some critics warned that rejecting U.S. assistance outright could prove costly. The fight against the powerful cartels has taken a devastating toll on Mexico, claiming thousands of lives and destabilizing entire regions. With the cartels' reach extending deep into the United States through narcotics trafficking and money laundering, some observers argued that closer cooperation was not only inevitable but necessary. Still, Sheinbaum's position appeared to be grounded in principle rather than politics. She made it clear that while Mexico welcomed collaboration, it would not do so at the expense of its independence. Her administration has pledged to strengthen domestic law enforcement, invest in community-based anti-drug programs, and reform the judiciary to make the fight against organized crime more effective and transparent. The episode has now placed both leaders at a crossroads. Trump's insistence on stronger U.S. involvement in Mexico's security operations aligns with his broader policy of projecting American power beyond its borders. For Sheinbaum, the challenge lies in maintaining a cooperative relationship without compromising her nation's sovereignty. The next moves from both sides will determine whether this disagreement becomes a defining fracture or a momentary clash in an otherwise pragmatic partnership. In the coming months, observers expect that the question of U.S. military involvement will remain a flashpoint in bilateral discussions. As violence in northern Mexico intensifies and fentanyl overdoses continue to surge in the United States, pressure will mount on both leaders to find common ground. Yet for now, Sheinbaum's message stands as a clear line in the sand: Mexico will fight its battles on its own soil, under its own flag, and by its own rules. In the days following President Claudia Sheinbaum's bold rejection of President Donald Trump's proposal to deploy U.S. troops into Mexican territory, the political and diplomatic reverberations could be felt across both nations. What began as a private exchange between two leaders had now transformed into a defining moment in North American politics, one that exposed deep-rooted tensions over sovereignty, security, and mutual trust. In Mexico City, the mood was a mixture of pride and unease. While Sheinbaum's declaration of independence struck a powerful chord among ordinary citizens, analysts, business leaders, and members of her own government were quietly debating the potential fallout. Mexico's economy remained heavily tied to the United States through trade, investment, and labor flows, and a sudden diplomatic chill could have serious consequences. Still, Sheinbaum's stance was seen by many as a calculated risk, a move that would strengthen her domestic credibility, especially among voters weary of what they perceived as American interference. Behind the closed doors of the National Palace, her advisors worked tirelessly to manage the situation. Intelligence reports warned that several major drug cartels had been regrouping in northern and western regions, exploiting local instability and gaps in law enforcement. Sheinbaum knew that refusing U.S. military assistance did not mean refusing to act. Her priority was to show that Mexico could handle its internal crisis with its own resources, while also preserving a cooperative, though more balanced, relationship